Hello everybody. Tonight is going to be an interesting one for us. As you can see, I'm in a different spot here. I thought let me just start with some nice country music. I'm doing my own video switching tonight, so things are a little bit different. Still got Johan watching the chat for me, but it's his birthday today, so I told him he doesn't have to come to work. So happy birthday, Johan. So this is going to be number one in a series of looks at the Avid S6L, the live console. I've had this console for about 3 years now. Gears have got some of these consoles. We've installed some of these consoles at some of the broadcast studios. So they're slowly making their way. They're up there on the riders internationally. Most of the engineers in the country have worked on these and given their feedback. I mean, obviously, from a comfort factor, everybody has their preferences. So I'm going to take you through this console. Every now and again, I'm going to put my hand to the side here because I'm doing my own switching. So I'm going to go to a wide shot so you can see what I'm doing. So I've got a little setup here. I've got the touchscreen over there on my right-hand side. I've got the console here. You can see I've got a couple of cameras up here, which is going to give you some different views. I'm going to show you those views quickly. So these are all the angles I've got for you. You'll notice in some of them you can see my hand. The bottom two angles are the two screens on the console itself. Like I said last week, I've loaded some software that allows me to broadcast these screens. Unfortunately, they're a little bit dark. I apologize for that, but I think the quality is still good when we expand on them. The middle screen, which is the main touch screen, which is on the bottom left, which is where we can see. You'll see changes happen as I'm changing on the screen. And then on the right-hand side, I've got my main touchscreen where I'm going to be using the mouse because then you can't see my hand in front of the screen. So when I use the mouse, you'll see where I'm actually working. So I'm going to go back to this view for now. So to give you an overview, the Avid S6L has been on the market now for about just over 4 years, 4.5 years. Obviously, its predecessor is the Profile and the D-Show and the SC48 in the family. The S6L comes in a variety of formats, but they're all under the banner of the S6L because everything is compatible. In terms of the hardware that I'm running here currently, let me just talk you through that quickly. I've got the 32D console, meaning that it's got 32 faders, and D meaning display. So it's got a display a bunch above every 8 faders. I have the 192 engine, which is the main core of the console. Then I have two 6432 stage racks, all connected via the AVB network. AVB is the protocol that runs within the Avid system. I've got two network cards in the engine, which allows me one network card gives me the ring for the I/O, and the second network card gives me the ring for the local connections. And then there's a third connection, which is Pro Tools. You can't see it now. You saw just now there's a Mac here. Takes AVB in, which gives me 128 channels on a Mac Pro straight into Pro Tools. Obviously, being in the Avid family, the Pro Tools is integrated. And if we go back here, over here on the console, we've got a transport section, which if I press the transport section, I've got play, pause, rewind, record to interact with Pro Tools whilst I'm doing... So this little MLM system, which is your main live module, is different to all the other modules in terms of its functionality. It's always placed in the middle of the console. Just above that is our main touchscreen module, where we see our universal view, or we see our meters view, or we see our channel view. And then we've got the fader bank at the bottom, which is 32 faders. Now, on this console, I'm going to go to a different view quickly so you can see my hand, or I'm going to go solo on that one quickly. So if you look at this console, you'll notice that, like for example, these faders aren't assigned any mode at the moment because I'm in a layout. But if I go out of layouts, you'll notice that there's some music playing. I've got outputs here, which are currently auxiliaries. I can change those by using the assign buttons next to the fader assigns. So at the moment they're VCA, you can see the colors change at the bottom of the faders. If I go to next page, I can make the matrix. See this matrix, this feed here is the feed that's matrix 1, which is our broadcast feed, which is what's currently going out to you guys. And then if I'm on the left side, I've got a row of buttons to assign all my different input channels, all the way through to 196. It says 184 because some of them are stereo, so the paths are 196. And if they're all stereo or all mono, you'll get or variation thereof, you'll get different amount of input channels. So in this current configuration, which is what we call the default mode, it's very simple, similar to what the profile used to work with, where you had your input faders, output faders, input faders, and then you would assign inputs and outputs on your control section. But now I can go to an input button, which basically means every fader on the console is inputs. Regardless, there's no output faders currently. If I go to outputs, every fader on the console is outputs according to what I've selected on the output assigns. So this console has 96 buses, which can be configured between auxiliaries and groups, as well as mono and stereo. It has 24 matrix sends, monos, so that could make 12 stereos. And it has 32 VCAs. Oh, sorry, 48 VCAs. It's upgraded. Forgot about that. I keep getting that wrong. It used to be 32. So there's 32 and another 16 gives me my 48 VCAs. So that's a lot of VCAs. And if you listen to some of my previous chats where I talk about workflows, you can utilize VCAs in a very unique way. So utilizing VCAs to do drums in groove, toms, overheads, and an overall drum, that's 4 VCAs just on your drum kit. And you can carry on like that. So if you're working on a big setup, you can end up with quite a few VCAs in use. Just to say that, obviously, I welcome any questions. Tonight's main focus is an overview of the console. We're going to talk about the layout. We're going to talk about access and how you interact with the console. I've got a session on here, which is just a demo session running, so it's got some random things set up on it. But then I'm going to take you to some different views so we can see, for example, how to do channel interaction, how to do some patching, how to assign channels, how to utilize some of the encoders on our control knob module, which is above every 8 faders on the left and the right. There's 32 encoders which you can bank through to get access to all your different control features or manipulation features of every channel. I often say that this console is very friendly towards engineers that are mouse friendly, touchscreen friendly, encoder friendly. So depending on how you want to use. If you come from a platform where it's all about the buttons and the tactile feel, you can work 100% like that. You never have to engage the touchscreen on the actual console. Vice versa. If you're used to grabbing touchscreens, you can grab the touchscreen either on the console or on the side screen. If you're a guy that's, just only got one muscle practiced in your body, which is the mouse finger, you can grab the mouse and you can do everything on the mouse. But obviously that slows you down significantly. This console is also broken up in banks of 8. So I can access individually when I hit the select button. You'll notice here on each channel there's a select button and there's a little purple triangle there which is called the attention button. When I attention a channel, I'm having the system look at the channel. When I select a channel, it selects it within that parameter section onto the control section above the channel. So when I select a channel here, I can EQ it right above it. So if I select this channel, I can then access different elements about that channel. If I attention the channel, you can notice on this one here that the one is selected and the one is attentioned. The attentioned one then goes to my main screen. So if I go to my channel view, so there you can see how the control touch screen or touch module above a section of channels has got a layout where you see your I/O section at the top, you see a VU meter, you see some gain reduction, you see a routing, you see a name. Underneath that you've got your capturing section where there's gain, phantom, all of that. Then just underneath that is your EQ manipulation section, your dynamic section, your plug-in section, and then your busing section. So if I want to go to the busing section, I purely press there and you'll notice that the control knobs follow me. If I want to go to the EQ section, I press there and the EQ knobs follow me. If you don't want to press buttons, on the bottom of this control knobs, there's inputs, EQ, dynamics, plugins, mix 1 through 32, 33 through 64, and 65 through 96, which is also where you would access your groups if you had made some of your buses groups. So it's quite intuitive from that point of view. So that's our main screen of a channel view. So at the moment you can see I'm on my vocal channel. I'm going to use the mouse so that you can see where I'm moving. On the left side here you've got the full input section where you notice at the top of the fader there's the actual patch, my labeling. There's some cursors where you can go left or right. There's a filing tab. There's even a Pro Tools signal there. If I switch that button in and I had a Pro Tools session running, I would switch source to Pro Tools. So this is where Virtual Soundcheck comes in. Then I've got my fader, I've got my VU meter, mute, solo, a monitoring select because I can select between monitor A, B, or A and B because there's two monitor buses on this console for two different engineers. On my direct out section, we've got access to the patch bay, on, off, and a volume, high pass filter, gain. That little question mark at the top there is what we call a gain guess. I'm not going to press it now on my speaking channel. I'll show it to you just now on some music playing. There's phantom, pad, input delay, high pass filter or low pass filter, pan, and then your three safe modes, which is A for automation safe, S for solo safe, and B for bank safe. Now those are displayed here separately, but on a channel, if I go back to this view quickly, on every channel I've got a little menu button and a safe button. That safe button by default is automation safe, and you can see a little green light go on there. And if we go back to that view there, you'll notice that there where the mouse is, that little green A, I'm moving it so you can see it, is what I've been switching on and off from the channel. And then by default it's automation safe. I've got mine normally set that by default on an input channel it's automation safe, on an output channel it's bank safe. That's how I currently on this far side here, you can see there's a Matrix 1, which is my broadcast feeds to you. There's got a safe on it. If I attention this and bring it to the screen, you'll notice it looks a little bit different because there's obviously it's not an input, it's an output, which means you can see my left-right feed there. You can see what I'm currently sending to you, which is my left and right, panned left, panned right, linked all the way up, automation safe and bank saved. Obviously, I can't solo safe an output. So bank safe meaning there where when I place a channel on the desk somewhere, it will stay there, which is nice. So I've got that channel on the right-hand side here, and I want it to stay there no matter what I'm doing. Like I was showing you guys earlier, I'm switching between inputs and outputs, and I'm carrying on. That channel stays there because I've bank saved it. So as I'm banking between inputs, output channels, layers, whatever, that channel will stay there until I take the bank safe off. So if you've got an MC mic or a DJ playing in the background or something that you don't want to, while you're setting up your band, you don't want to lose that actual fader, stick it on the side, bank safe it, and carry on. Now that can be anywhere on the console. It doesn't have to be on the side. If it's a lead vocal, I normally do it here on channel 16 maybe. So I have my lead vocal here all the time. And then I design my layers around it so I don't need that fader in my general fader layouts. So it's quite a handy tool to use that. So there you can see the four screens of the console. So that now shows you the main touchscreen on the right. It shows you the main touchscreen in the middle of the console, which I can go to inputs, and then it shows you the faders and the actual touchscreen above the faders. So you'll notice that if I attention a channel here, you'll notice it's on the main screen there. You can see it moving there. I've got fader access. On my center screen, I can go to a channel view where I will see view. So if I attention my channel that I'm talking on, you'll notice some compression and everything happening there. You'll see it on not only the channel view over there, but you'll also see it on the central view, and you'll see it on the main view. So there's three places. So I can get a lot of information feedback to me in that case. So I'm going to do this quickly. you can see me. What I've got going is, and it's all about information. If I'm standing behind the console and I'm working on something over here, and for example, like on some consoles, you only have one screen, you have to always engage something to get information about whatever you're working on. Where on this console, you can see that if the channel's on a fader in front of me, I have information about that fader right in front of me in line. I don't necessarily have full resolution. It's small icons. I can see a representation of EQ. I can see a representation of my dynamics, gate, compressor. I can see gate switching. I can see compression, gain reduction. I can see plug-in slots that are occupied. I can even see a degree of, if you look at the bottom of this screen over here, I'm going to go there to this channel. You'll notice there, if you can see my finger, it's a little bit small, but there's indication of auxiliary sends. Because the auxiliary is active, you can see on the you can't see that now. Let me switch out that screen quickly. I'm going to go this one or that one and make it that one over there. So over here, I've got my auxiliary sends, and as I switch them on and off, the purple light on the screen goes on, and it even shows a contribution. So that on the main screen, which is on the side here, I'll use the mouse. If I can find it, there we go. On the right-hand side of the main screen, you can see where the mouse is, I think, is all my auxiliary sends. Now I can't influence it over there until I click on it. If I click on that section, it expands it tremendously, and now you can see auxiliary 1 through 16, 17 through 32, 33 through 48. I've got access to all of my auxiliaries. Now the reason they made that possible, that can look like it's quite cumbersome, but if you're a monitor engineer and you want to walk away from the console, the ECX function, which is basically a VNC, it's a virtual network connection, you take over the main screen on the side there onto an iPad, you can walk away and you can do monitor mixing, because you've got access to everything as if you're at the console. You've got a fader for the channel. You can select your channels on the bottom of the screen, and you can also navigate and get to all your different auxiliary outs. That was introduced a couple of softwares ago, because on the initial release, they didn't have that on the main screen. And as a monitor engineer, it's like, well, I can't walk away from the console now. So they've brought that in, which is amazing. And you can also, like you can see, you can color code. Even on my screen, you can see I've got a couple of different color codes at the bottom of every channel. There's a luminous LED that changes color. So there's quite a few different ways you can interact. The main knob section underneath the channel, which I think you can see now, if I go to my EQ section, I've selected my mic. So you see the gain, frequency select, and the bandwidth. I've got an analog button, so I can change the shape of the EQ if I wanted to. I'm going to go out of here so you can see the EQ on the main screen as well. I'm going to do that. You can see that. Yeah, you can see it. So if I go to my dynamic section, you'll notice again color-coded. I've got blue for the compressor. I've got yellow for the gate. If I go to my plugins, I have got a plugin on this channel. It's not active at the moment. Let me go to the plugins page over here so you can see it. That plugin over there we go. It's a McDSP NR800, which is a noise cancelling plugin. So if I had to put that in now, you'd hear quite a significant noise reduction on my vocals, and you can actually see the plugin work there. I've got access to that plugin on the encoders here because I've selected the plugin. So I can go, and obviously the plugin has got a lot more parameters than what's available here. So on the plugin side, I can scroll using the buttons to the left and the right of the select so that I can access different parameters. So if I go to input and I go to noise reduction range, I can increase that, and you can see if I don't talk loud enough now, then it's going to cancel my voice out, and as I come down, there you go. So I just put that into, because there's a lot of fan noise and stuff. This is a live console. It's not made to be in a studio, so there is some fan noise and coming off the hardware. So if If I take that out, I can hear a slight change in my headphones. If you were listening on headphones, you would have heard that. So I've got access to the plugin, but if I put in, I've got 4 plugin slots per channel. I can access all of them here by just selecting which plugin I want to be active with. It labels it on the screen, and then it shows me there, it puts the name of the plugin there, and I've got parameters. So if I had to go to my plugins page quickly and just go to config mode, I'm just going to put a mono plugin on the, I'm just going to do a straight dynamic, just the normal use a Pro compressor from, compressor bank. I can insert that quickly on the screen on my channel, which is over here somewhere. There we go. So I've got this compressor now on my microphone. So now on my channel section here, you can notice I've got a second option of a plugin. It's a much more basic plugin, a lot less functionality. So I've got threshold, I've got knee, compressor, gate, all of that. So I don't need to grab the mouse to grab the main screen or try and work on that touch screen. I've got attenuators here to work with it. And then I can just switch with the select button between the plugins I want to operate on the channel. And all the plugins are mapped to the encoders, which makes it really, really handy to work with. And I can take that, I can also put it in, take it out with using the in-out button on this section as well. I don't have to go somewhere else. Above the faders, you can see here there's a little XY button. XY buttons are for the onboard dynamics. You can hear there I switch the gate in and out, and then I switch the compressor on and off. These buttons are by default gate in, gate out, compressor in, compressor out, but you can assign them to be a specific function that you would like them to be on your channel. Obviously, the X's will be the same for all the channels, and the Y's will be the same for all the channels. So if you do change that, but it gives you, again, instead of having to take my hand, if I'm working with the drummer goes into like a solo and he suddenly goes to ghost notes on a snare drum and I'm missing the ghost notes, I can just quickly, with one button right there by the fader, get rid of the gate quite quickly, or even the compressor, or whatever else other function you put there. The other thing I haven't touched on yet, which we'll do, the plan is to do, we've looked a little bit at the virtual sound check, but I want to look specifically at input channels, specifically at output channels, compatibility with feature sets with the output channels, and then looking at things like function keys. Function keys, we've got 128. So if I come to the middle section here, I've got 128 function keys, and they can be whatever. I mean, I come to a control section on the main screen, and then I go to events, and by default there's 9 events, but I can very quickly just go make a new event. I can label it on screen, call it, I'm going to call it mute. And what do I want to mute? So I've got a trigger on this side here. I'm going to select function switch. I'm going to select function switch 48. And then I'm going to add a set control for channel. I'm looking for the music channel quickly so I can demonstrate. I'm just going to find it. It's here somewhere. iPod. There we go. On my iPod, I've set it to mute on and latch. So now function switch 28. If I bring the music up, I'm going to channel 48. So I press function key 48, my music is muted. Okay, so what happens is I can set those up quite quickly, and if you look on the screen, you can see there's a, I don't have the, oh, you can see it, yeah. You can see when I press it, there's an activity reading over there. But I can do it fader up, I can do fader down, I can change the position. You can make it, your list of triggers and your list of actions is significant. So if you're running theater productions and you want things keying off of each other, or you want timecode triggers, or you want specific fader movements triggering specific elements, you do that all via events. And then you can also have function switches to those. You can have a function switch for every one of your songs. Instead of going next, 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 you can have a list of 20 songs, and 1 through 20, they're all on function switches. Depending which one the band plays, you press that and it recalls that specific snapshot for you. And obviously then snapshots is another thing we'll look at in quite a bit of detail, which is very, very, very useful and very powerful. And you can obviously, you can see on the right hand side, they've got plugins in there. It can be with or without plugins. The red obviously means scope, and we'll go through all of that in a different video. But that gives you quite a, got a question here from someone. Let me just scroll, sorry. Can the noisy bits be in a machine room? Yes, they can. We did that it's from Paul Smith asking, at the new drama studios at SABC. We installed S6Ls for their workflow because of the ergonomics of this. It works really well to work quickly and get your recording done. It's straight into Pro Tools. You can have virtual sound checks, you can record, and you can run proper recording sessions. You can listen live, you can listen off tape, and then the machine room at the back. Because we're running AVB is network. So the engine can be, and the I/O racks. The I/O racks are where you need them, and the engine can be where you need it. So you put it in the aircon room, you lock it away. This control surface itself is dead quiet. There's nothing on here. It's dead quiet. So they've just done in the new version that they've just launched, we've gone away from a daisy chain AVB system, and with the new Luminix network ports or network hubs, you can do whatever topography you want to do in terms of networking. So you can have main and backup network ports and run your network like you would set up a proper network anywhere else, and have redundancy running and all that kind of stuff. Ace is asking, is your touchscreen using a mirror mode on your Mac or PC, or the output from the console? Not sure I understand that question. So touchscreen using a mirror mode on your Mac or PC. So obviously AVB is Mac only. It's not on PC yet. So the AVB output here is going to the Mac for the Pro Tools side. This system itself is PC based, Windows based. So this is, the side screen and the center screen is display 1 and 2 of the PC, and then the touch screens above the channels are closed off modules. So that's display 1, that's display 2. If you go and mess on Windows, you can switch them around, which you don't want to do. That's a Dell screen, touch screen, so that's connected back to the console with a USB to activate the touch screen. It doesn't have to be a touch screen, but obviously it helps you. The external is connected via a DVI port on the back of the console to get that resolution. It's a very high resolution. If I'm not mistaken, it's 1960 by 1280, something like that. And you can't resize that. So if you have a monitor that can't run that resolution, then it's not gonna launch it. So I've got a little harness going from the console, which is bringing USB power and DVI connection to that touchscreen. Everything else obviously is inside. If you take any one of these modules out, it's a network connection. And that's how it manages the communication. I think that answers Ace's question. So coming back to where I was. So what makes it, another thing that I really like about this is, even on the function switches, I would normally make like F5 a bank safe off button. So I told you about bank safe. Bank safe, if I've got a bunch of VCAs over here, which is all my show VCAs, I would tend to bank safe them so that if I'm changing, they don't move away from me. But then if I want to check something and I go to input page and I want inputs across the 32 faders, I can switch off bank safe temporarily which releases the bank safe. I see my input channels and switch it back on, and my VCAs are back. So that's and it works for inputs and outputs. So bank safe, a global bank safe, a bank safe on and off, which I've come to use quite a bit. There's a global tap select, tap tempo, and then to interact with it, with the universe screen and all the different screens. I think you can see that screen. You can do layout assignments. You can do, if you go to your auxiliary outputs, you've got mute solos. If you're a monitor engineer and you want to run through a bunch of monitors, you can go sends on faders, solo, and then as you're selecting different auxiliaries, the faders are following you and you're listening, which is a really cool workflow to have. I can access my matrix. You can also then do color changes. So like you can see here on the main screen there, I've got the drums in red, I've got my mic in blue, I've got the effects in purple. So if I want to sort, I can go to sort all the purples. And I press that button and it just shows me the two icons that I've made purple, the two channels. So if I switch it off, everything's back. So I tend to get into a mood where you make everything surrounding percussion a certain color, inputs, outputs, effects, all of that. Everything around vocals a certain color, everything around guitars a certain color. So if I only want to work with guitars, I do a filter and I go to guitars, and then when I switch between my tabs, I only see the colors that I'm filtering. So you can think about it, the reason they've done that again, because the amount of channels we can run, you don't want to waste too much time finding something. At the bottom of the center screen, you'll see there's 16 channels, but I can scroll that. You notice that I can scroll to the left, scroll to the right. And that scrolls between the current 32. But your main screen here, I just scroll up and down. I can see all my inputs and all my outputs. But you can really do a very nice visual check because there's a VU on each of them as well. 1920 by 1080. Sorry, there we go. Trust the computer guy to correct me. I think I've done about enough tonight. That's about a half an hour of gibberish. If I get into snapshots now, or if I get into anything specific now, it can get I'll get bogged down. I'm not going to stop. So I'm going to break this down into looking at input channels, everything about input channels. Then I'm going to look at all the different bus outputs and everything about buses. We'll look at plugins. I know I get a lot of questions about what plugins to use, what's your favorite plugins, all that kind of stuff. I'll look at plugins. On this console, just to give you a quick idea, if I go to my plugins install page, you'll notice there that I've got all the basic Pro Tools. I've got the DSP plugins bundle that I've bought installed on the console. Obviously, everything's AAX. And if I go to my plugin page, I can have quite a few plugin slots occupied. There's 5 racks, every rack with 40. That's 200 potential plugins. And you think, well, if you're looking at some DAW sessions, that's not enough. But you must remember, that's in addition to all the DSP that's currently on the console. I've got lots of dynamic, lots of EQ processing on every single channel, which work very well. They're very resilient. Aidan asked how many S6L in SA. There's currently 3 in rental and 2 installed. They've only recently, towards the end of last year, launched some more in the chain. I think I'll get Johan to put the link up there to the page. So originally the 32D, they've now launched a 48D, which is massive for 2 operators. But then they've also launched the 24C and the 16C, which is a much smaller control surface, drops the price right down. The 16C has only got 16 faders, 1 channel knob module, the main live module, and a touchscreen on the side. The 24C has got 24 faders, the MLM, the main live module, and the center universe screen. So they don't have the side screen. So it's a physical thing to cut costs. It doesn't change anything on your audio. You can run 192 channels. Whatever I've created on this, I can run on a 16C. because all I'm losing is the amount of faders available to me at any one time. So the thought there is, if you want to set up a big theater production, you can, as a rental company, bring in a 48D, have 2 engineers sit there, program the thing to death. When you're done, you take your little 16C, stick it in the control room, and run that whole show. Because if you set your layers up right, which we've got over here, I've got 48 layers. My first layer or layout is assigned to my snapshots. So as I'm changing scenes in a production, the faders in front of me will follow that scene. I don't have to think about it. On some other consoles, you have to set up layouts in anticipation of which layout you're going to have to be on for which scene. Whereas here with layout 1, I link it to my snapshots. And as I'm changing snapshot, if this fader is always my lead vocal fader, no matter what snapshot I'm in, that'll be my lead vocal, whichever mic it is, because that's how I've programmed the layouts. Same, and then also with the function switches. We can have the color switches at the bottom of the channels can also be trigger buttons for something. You can assign those in your functions, in your functionality. You can even, on your channel strip, on the CKM section, the channel knob module, there's a button. It's got inputs, EQs, dynamics that I've showed you, but there's a channel button here which you can customize completely. So if you're used to working or having an EQ displayed in a certain pattern, or want your gain button over there or the gain button at the bottom working backwards, you can customize this module. So when I press channel, it's the channel strip of my dreams that I've created on 32 encoders. Yeah, so that answers that. Not sure what else. While on AVB, have you had a need to interface with Dante equipment gear? If so, how, please? So yes, the console, my console's got MADI cards in it. This console runs at 96K. Sorry, good point there. In this rack, what I've got here is I've got the RME MADI to Dante. So my MADI card feeds the RME, and then I've got Dante coming in and out. There is a Dante card for the stage rack, which is a 16-way card. And depending on where you put it, it's either 16 in, 8 in, 8 out, or 8 or 16 out, depending on where you physically slot it onto the I/O rack. And then obviously, with being 96K, coming out the MADI card is only 32 at 96. On the stage racks, there are MADI output options which you can sample rate convert down to 48K, which means you can get 2 64-channel MADI feeds off of stage racks. So we've used that very successfully on quite a number of productions to do backup recordings with. So we run our main recording via AVB here, and then we have at the stage racks themselves, we take the MADI feeds, run them into an RME unit, into a different DAW, and we track 128 tracks. The Dante we've used when we run the voice and stuff like that. We run Dante obviously to the Ableton system, and the 32 in, 32 out is enough in that scenario. I think we did actually have a second MADI card in at that point, which means the 2 MADI cards together comes in and gives us a 64-channel Dante stream. And then there's also the RedNet 6 unit, which can do MADI to Dante. So you've got to interact with a couple of other products, but the RME product is a very, very nice little plug-and-play unit, which is just in my rack here to get me into Dante. In the office here where I'm standing now, I've got that connected to get these preamps upstairs to the studio so that I can get a Dante feed of whatever's on this console upstairs. But good question. Every time someone asks a question, it reminds me of something I haven't said yet. Yeah, so I'm going to watch your questions. I'm going to see your comments. Next week, what I'm going to do is I'll set up the cameras a bit differently now, and we'll put the link on the chat so you can go look at it on the website. But I'm going to focus in on input modules, how to interact with it, what to get, how it works, how to access different elements, and then we can have a listen to those as well. We've got my little background music playing here. If I select this one, I was going to quickly run a demonstration, just as something that's very handy. So I've turned the gain right down, so it's too soft. So I've got to push the fader quite a bit. So now I've got the fader there, it's just under my voice, but the gain is too low. I'd have to push it. If this was a keyboard or something, I'd have to push it too high. So I showed you earlier that question mark on the input page, which you can still see if I bring the mouse there, just above the gain. But then on the channel itself, on my gain button, if I press and hold my gain, there's a functionality called gain guess. And as long as I hold it in, it averages out what's coming in. So obviously if you're doing a snare drum, you need about 3 or 4 snare hits. It's very difficult to do with a vocal because there's a lot of inflections. But the music that's playing now, I think what's key is watch the fader. I've got a preset level. You guys are hearing the music. I'm now going to adjust the gain. I'm going to press and hold this. I'm holding it in, I'm holding it in, I'm holding it in. I'm going to let go. You notice that the level is now proper. The gain has gone to plus 33.4, but you didn't hear a difference. I'm going to do it again. Drop the gain right down. There's music there. So on this screen here, I'm going to make it full screen so you can see it. Solo. So I'm talking about this fader over here. That's our music. I've pressed select, so I've got it. I've got my channel section over here. I'm going to go to input. There's my gain. My gain is currently down. You can see the signal level is low. It's sitting at about 15. So, but my gain is not right. So if I'm recording this channel, I might be happy with the mix and the level, but if I'm recording this channel, it's way too low in Pro Tools. So if I go and I press this, I'm going to press it 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You see the fader's dropped right down. I've now got proper gain, and I've got a gain of plus 22.5. So I've got decent signal, but you didn't hear a difference. So the console will not make a destructive change. If it's the other way around, so if the gain's too high, and I pull the fader down, so I'm going to turn it so till it sort of clips. You can see there it goes red, it's clipping. I'll pull the fader right down to maintain the noise. If I now press gain guess, hold it in, it's going to fix the gain, but you can hear that it's gone softer. So in context, I'd rather have it go down than have it go up. But most of the time it's the other way around. So it's just a nice way of using gain guess. And if you're on a stereo channel where there's a difference between left and right, it will also do a right hand offset to adjust for that gain difference. Oh, nice. Okay, you can exit the Avid ecosystem. Just to mention that the AVB is AVB onto Mac. So your GarageBand, whatever you've got, the way my system is set up here, I can play iTunes via AVB into the system here and pick it up on 2 channels because it's AVB. All I've got to do is my audio system, my audio MIDI manager, and select which outputs I want the system to be looking at, and I can do playback. It doesn't have to be Pro Tools. It's an I/O device. Would you say that the onboard plugins are generally sufficient, or would you use Wave servers in a bigger production? So on my profile system, I ran Waves for years because Waves is built in. But I don't run it in excess. So what I would do is the onboard stuff, even some of the big productions I do, 85% of the channels, I've got no plugins on them. I'm running the onboard stuff. The way I run plugins is on my focus stuff, so my lead vocals. Obviously plugins for effects. I've got to set up some effect sends and returns. So I'll have about 8 or whatever, how many plugins doing on bus sends. And then I might run, or used to run like the SSLG channel or something on a vocal and those kind of things. And then obviously I use plugins for the main mastering control. Like I am at the moment, I'm using this plugin here. And you can actually see me talking there. So if you look at the screen now, it's not on screen, that one over there. You can see there I've got my loudness going. I've got a little setting. So that's on my left and right. So that's running my loudness, and I'm controlling how loud I'm going to the stream now with that plugin. There is a compressor on the matrix out where I can do compression and make up gain, but obviously it doesn't have the same effect as a expander or different more purpose-built plugin. So if you've got a reason to use a plugin, use a plugin. We get a lot of requests for the Wave servers currently, so there isn't a Wave server. They launched the Wave server card early last year, which comes into the rack, and then you don't need another computer. It runs on the console, so it comes in the plug-in racks. So you put the Wave server card in, you go to a server, and then you access everything. In your setup section, you will go to your setup page, you'll set up your Wave servers and everything like you would normally do on a computer system, and everything stays on the console. All the access stays on screen on the console. I don't have to have another computer. So, but that also means it's completely integrated with my snapshots and all that kind of stuff, as like all these plugins are. So it does make it, from that perspective, ease of use. And I think that's why they took so long, not long, but they waited till they perfected that before they launched it. And obviously it's a cost. I mean, a Wave server costs a certain amount of money. I've got a lot of Waves plugins, so that's not an issue. So it's just a matter of the card. I'm even considering getting the card and not getting a server. And when someone requests it, I can rent a server from, around me, I know about 10 people that have got Wave servers. I've just got to plug it into my card and I'm done. I don't have to, I don't personally want to use it. I don't have a need for it. I felt that with the new Avid plugins, the new Pro limiters and Pro compressors and Pro channels and all that, they are amazing. They work very well, but the onboard stuff is, once you've worked with this, it's clean, it's precise, the dynamics is amazingly sweetened and transparent. So my drum kit, my bass guitar, I'll stick with the onboard stuff as much as I can. And what I tend to do is I will do some group busing, and I'll put maybe in some Pro limiters on the groups, like what I'm using now, just to do some sectional mastering and then go out of the console. I hope that answers your question, Ace. But the onboard dynamics and onboard EQ is phenomenal. It works really well and very easy to access. I'm still playing music. Let me pull that down. Taken aback by my little background music there. It's quite nice. Just to give you an indication, the way I'm doing this now, I think I showed you that, because every time I do this, people ask. So I'm going to go to a wide shot. So on the wide shot, you can now see I've got my iPad on the side here. iPad, I'm running my switcher system, where I've got all my camera sources, all the different things. That's what I've been fiddling with the whole time. And then over here, I've got the Tascam US 4x4 with the left-right in from the console, and that goes USB into the iPad, and that's my audio source. So I've got, at the top of my iPad here, I've got an indication of my audio levels. And so this is my director little system sitting over here, and I can now go and do that and say I want that one screen. There's my 6 screens, and I go from there. And if I've got audio video clips in here with audio like I've had before, I can just play those out. So solo myself up there again. What's nice is this is an iOS software, so it's got full control over the iOS device. I can zoom, I can change quite a bit of things, and I can change on the camera between the different lenses quite easily. So I get different lenses, and if I really wanted to get intimate, I could really come to your face. There we go. Hello. Anyway, I'm fiddling now, but it's cool. I hope you got something out of it. What I'll do is, one of the things I realized I didn't do tonight, but I think you can see that on the website, it's just the actual hardware elements. There's some really good PDFs and documents on the website to give you a good indication of how the systems fit together, connection options. Currently you can connect 2 systems to a set of input racks, and you have true gain sharing between the two. They actually call it true gain. There's some nice videos that explains that as well, where I don't end up with the one with the gain and the other one with the trim. They both have gains. Although one of them is the main preamp controller, I still have a gain, so I can do virtual sound checks and stuff on my own, even if I don't own the preamp, which is really nifty. And then I can save my folder, and if I go to another session where there isn't another console, my session will work on preamps, because I don't suddenly have a preamp gain. I've had it all the time. The only thing that goes away is my phantom power button and my phase button. Yeah. So thanks for watching, guys. That was fun. Almost feel like I wish everybody could just be sitting here and then I could just go for hours and bring it out. I must say it's a bit different trying to do everything myself, because I'm thinking about talking, I'm thinking about this, and then I end up talking, you're not looking at me and you're looking at the wrong thing. But we make do. At least it's something a little bit different. So if you enjoyed tonight, join me again next week. Tomorrow morning, just FYI, we've got Marlon back in the studio. We've got a special guest as well on bass. I'm going to talk a little bit about mixing, and I'll do exactly what we spoke about tonight. Yes, Samba Sali is very big on Avid. He's one of the main contributors for them as well. So tomorrow morning I'm going to go. We'll have drum kit. I've slimmed it down a little bit with the miking, so it's more basic. We've got bass guitar coming in, things like that, with some track elements. So we'll do a bit of mixing, a little bit of EQing, and have some jam sessions with the guys. So join us tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, and then enjoy the rest of the evening. Thanks, guys.